So I'm here meeting David and Neti from Amita Institute in Hong Kong. And you have been doing research about the system for about 13 years. And just please tell me about what that is.
Well, the Institute's been doing that, and we've been involved for a less period of time. And we're not actually the researchers, but I suppose like in life we're all researching in a way. But this institute, yes, has been researching basically how the system generates consciousness, generates matter, which in turn generates our suffering and the problems we have in life. So they've been researching how the system does that as a way of finding out then how to undo that. Because unless you really know how the system works, then it's very hard to know what to do to make your life better. It's like unless you know the codes of how it works, how could you change something?
So just the system, can you explain what the system is to start off with?
Well, the system, yeah, it's interesting. It's like a neutral word for, some people say universe, some people say God or something like that, but the system's a more neutral word, less emotions in it to describe everything. So it would include even the spirit world as well. People might say the spirit world. So it's something that includes everything, because humans tend to split things into different dimensions and different characteristics. But we tend to say, well, it's all one thing, right? It's all one system, but it has lots of different parts. Yeah. Would that be reasonable to say?
Yeah.
In that way?
And also, I think they really concentrate on helping people how to get we call conglomerate understanding. That means everything connected, but in what way, what specific way, how we understand it. Through those understanding, we can make a change bit by bit. And what is allowed in this moment? What can I do in this moment? Otherwise, it's so frustrated. How can I change, right? And they do have some practical tool or knowledge for us to learn slowly, get to change ourselves, and then in terms of some passive way that people surrounded us, they are changing to be better without doing too much. So this is some dilemma sometimes we face in life, that it's hard to change our close one or a family member. But by understanding this concept, it is more focused on how I change myself, because we are so connected to our loved one, then they automatically change.
It's really interesting to listen to you, and you've explained to me now for some hours, and in one way it's complex, and in one way it really makes sense. So
that's what we find. We find that I mean, in our institute there are very few people, like probably about 16 staff members and about maybe 30 or 35 people like who involve themselves, volunteer or something like that. So it's just a few people at the moment, but growing quite quickly now. A few years ago it used to be just 5 or 6 people. But you're right, it's interesting, because what we've learned through this research is that this system is very complex. As humans we always try to reduce things to very simple things, but actually life's actually not like that. But the way you describe it is how people often come to this work. It's like, wow, it just feels right, like something I always knew, and now you've given me a explanation, maybe, and that feels right. So yeah, it has to feel right, even though it's sort of can be quite scientific or something like that. It's strange in a way that it has to feel right in here as well, to be attracted to it.
But there's a purpose of it that comes down to what?
As well, I only joined them in a very short period of time. But as far as I know, the founder, he really have a heart to help humanity. Since he was 6, he already have this wish to have a institute that to help children to be happier and better, especially those with severe illnesses. And it's such an interesting thing for me that somebody when he was so little, right? And all the way we observe him or learn from him or the group, that we know that he do things, so he walk the talk, and he's the only one who always like this, as far as I seen in my life. And one thing I find it fascinating, because he used to ask us one question to a group of us. None of us can answer it. That is, have you ever do one thing not for yourself? None of us can answer it. So his vision and purpose is, through all these 13 years research, he find a way, and many other ways, with the knowledge, with the understanding, there's a possibility we started to do this.
Can you talk about the clearing, the clearing of energy?
So we tend not to call it clearing, but people do call it clearing, and we're not really doing like energy healing, because our sort of understanding is the system's not wrong, so you can't actually heal it. It's not like fixing it. So a few years ago, when they first started off, I think the founder's name's David. He found that he would go and visit someone, and he found that he could move some energy from that person. But then he got very sick. So he's a very logical person. He used to be an architect. He thought, well, I'm just moving things around, because energy can never be like, once it's created, it can't be destroyed. So like, we're just moving things around. So he then really investigated and talked to the system about how can that be different? How can we start to neutralize or transcend energy? So later on, he learned how to do that. But what really was a breakthrough for them is that one day, one of the people working in Amita, when they just had a few people, saw some energy. So they decided to investigate that more and more. And what they found over all the years, they've spent so long researching this. So now what they found out is that they can actually see when energy is being neutralized. So unless they could see that, it's a major part of knowing they're on the right track. One way is people get better, so that what they're applying, which is just knowledge they're applying, people are getting better, but also they can see they're getting better by viewing their energy structure. So what attracted, I think, me and maybe Neti to this is that we always were trying to help people, but we didn't know we were. Like, we weren't sure about it. And a lot of things that told us maybe we're not. Because often in people's lives something may get better, but something may get worse.
Because you've been working with people
for a time. And also, when I was a psychotherapist, and for a lot of psychotherapists, their goal is actually, in a way, not to help people, because just to people to raise their awareness, but nothing really changes. Like, I know more about myself, but I still do the same things. So I think for some people they want to say, okay, what can be helpful for people to actually to change?
But thank you for clarifying that when I said clearing and neutralizing, like, okay, clearing is moving energy around, but what does neutralizing, how does that happen?
Well, I know you've put the mic in there, I'll just say it quickly because the thought comes to me. Neutralizing, we actually take the word in a way very literally. It's neutralizing something, right? So brings like matter and antimatter together and actually neutralizing it. But also it's an attitude of being neutral, right? So for instance, when we're very passionate about something, we have no choice but to do it. We're drawn to it so much, but it's not neutral. So what we found at Amita is if we take a neutral stance and try and see different possibilities, that actually modulates energy, or can do in itself, to take that more neutral stance. Because if you think about human existence, it's often these extremes like jealousy, intense passion and things that leads us into trouble. So what we tend to do is, take a more neutral stance, which seems to be a direction the system's prompting at the moment. And then you're less in the black and white thinking. You're less in extremes. Because if you're in extremes, that's what starts all the arguments and the conflicts. You're right, I'm wrong. That type of thing.
Or sometimes when we were passionate about something, then we tend to have expectation. And often the negativity happens when we didn't get what we want. We get disappointed, we get depressed to a certain extreme. Okay, everything is meaningless then. So it helps us not just to understand the concept or the why we are doing this, what drives us to doing this, and also have another technology help us to see with our bare eyes in a very neutral way and direct. So without much interpretation, then we tend to see what is in front of us, what caused me to do this, then it helps us to make a change smoothly, gradually, by this understanding and confirmation. Because I know I also do therapy and different kind of training, but also we notice people, they come, they feel better, but after a while they go back to where they were, or sometimes could be a little bit more extreme after certain things. So it is very important that we can have confirmation and check out and prove, so that we know how far we go, how much change we made. And first at the beginning, I got to know, they give us some session and report. Oh, Neti, this quality being improved in certain percentage. I was so happy because we need indication and how to evaluate what is the changes, where I'm heading to, and how I do, whether it's in the right direction or need to change as my certain mindset to work harder on particular side. So those are quite logical and quite precise things they provide and help us to understand. Yeah. Okay. So for Amita, they really emphasize of understanding, because knowledge is very important. If we understand what caused us to do certain things, then it's easier to make a change. But on the other hand, as we learn a lot of different methods, meditation or different therapy, we learn something we can practice. But then a person's life is usually been programmed. So for us, it's not that easy to make the change, even though we understand we should do this, we should do that, we should be nice to people. But often when something happened, it's really a struggle. So what we learn from here, they provide also, develop from the knowledge, some tools. For example, some we would call PCCM or some different method that can help us to make the change easier. So it's a little bit like a lock, basically lock our life in a certain path that been already designated from the ancestral energy or DNA. But with those tools, it seems like it's a key that can open the lock that make our changes become a slightly easier instead of going to the dead end.
So we started off in Amita without tools, basically. The tool was education. So basically Amita started to collect this new knowledge of how we do things, like why we do things, based on how the universe was constructed. So they really went back to the beginning of the universe and researched it and came up with some new ideas. Right? So when you go to a symposia in Hong Kong at the moment to learn this, you'll start to realize why you do things, right? Why you do live the life the way you do, and why you struggle with your life, and also why it's so difficult to change, because the coding's laid down in our DNA, in our cells. So unless we know how to undo that coding, we really haven't got much choice. Okay, so we have to follow the same path. So education is really important. So most people get the most out of Amita by understanding the concepts. So basically, as Neti says, the next stage was then we found that you could understand the concepts, but the change was quite slow because you really had to study it and get it inside you and live your life that way, which is still very important because the changes that happen through people with Amita is about them changing their lives. Right? In the end, it still has to be that. But the tools that developed seem to speed that up because it's just a way of delivering the knowledge to your energy structure without you having to go to a symposium all the time or talk about it all the time. So
Even when you are sleeping, it's still helping you to take this knowledge in your body.
But we do encourage people, as much as possible to learn about this new knowledge, which we really haven't published yet because people say, why don't you publish these new ideas? And the reason we haven't is probably twofold. Like with any practice, and people would understand this, you need to get a solid base of research up first. You know, a lot of people often rush to publish, but they're actually publishing an idea which really hasn't been tested. So we believe that if we can actually help people, and then that help can be shown over a period of time to actually change and help people, and not just be a quick thing that falls over or something. That if actually it's substantial and sort of they're on a new path, then maybe we'll start to publish and things. But we haven't got a energy to do that. We're more set up now to help people. And hopefully, you know, we're sitting here in Sweden, which is great to be here. And hopefully, when we can, if there's enough energy, and people say, yeah, what is this? You know, we can come over here and hold a symposium over here. Yeah, at some stage. You actually tried something out, didn't you?
I did. So do you want to...
What happened? Yeah, you tried this out. What was it? Can we ask you what it was? Your experience? Or? I put you on the spot.
Yes. So it's like handprints, and there are symbols on this. So I did put my hands on here, and there were some feelings coming up.
Feelings, what, emotions?
Emotions.
Sensations.
Emotions, I would say. And we could, I could see a certain color on one of the hands. And in the beginning, I felt my hands getting really warm, and one hand started shaking. My right hand started shaking.
A lot like that, or?
It's like a vibration, yeah.
Subtle.
Yeah.
And I had my hands on here, I think, for about 10 minutes. And then when I took them off, there was like water inside my hands, like they were really wet.
We've never noticed that with someone before, so that's something new. But we'll try and investigate that.
Yeah, we will ask them.
So it's interesting you say the symbols. So the symbols you can see on there, and a lot of people when they use these, they don't even notice these that they're on there. So you're very observant; you notice those. So those symbols are actually part of the understanding of the universe that we teach. So the sensation you're getting is because the energy is neutralizing because of that knowledge that's on this, right?
And there's some diagram that when you go to symposia, they will teach you how different splitting that will change the quality of the a cell, for example. Then when the quality change, the form or shape change. So they keep splitting and mutate. That's why different shape or different material form in this world. And of course us. Yeah.
That's why you're a woman, I'm a man, and she's
We're
Chinese and I'm European. The data that the system lays down in our records throughout the millenniums is what causes the different forms we have. Why a table's different to a human and that type of thing. And that understanding we find is very important. And it helps understand, potentially this would help with things like viruses and things like that, to understand why it's so hard to change those into a way where they're not aggressive and they don't try and kill us and things like that. At the moment, scientists don't seem to understand those sort of things. So this knowledge may help give a new angle on that, some new perspective, which may help, that type of thing.
What else can you see that we can get out of this knowledge?
The short answer is we don't know, because it's funny, you know, we say to the founder, what are we doing tomorrow? He says, I don't know. So it's like whatever the system decides, it's like it's not up to us, sort of thing. We try and be guided. So if the system prompts us in a certain direction, it's a bit like meeting you here. Like, you know, a few weeks ago we never thought we'd be in Sweden, you know, but apparently we're supposed to be here. So here we are. So a lot of the work Amita does, I suppose, is to understand what the system's asking us to do. And some things are a little bit like, when you look at society these days, things have changed rapidly, so there does seem a movement to understand more. You know, you can even see it in movies. Like the system's prompting us through movies like, you know, The Matrix, or, you know, Source Code or something like that. So all those movies which are looking at different understandings now of the universe. And if you think about, like, if we're all part of one system, then that system is prompting us to share that information, things. And other things we notice also, and fairly obvious things, like through technology and through, you know, even things like Facebook and Internet Explorer and those sort of things, the world's already being brought together. So the system seems to be using technology as a form of oneness. So it seems to be a movement towards those sort of things. And yeah, like you and I met on Facebook, you know, in a way through, you know, so there's no accident with these things. So yeah, these things seem to moving to an area where we're sharing more information.
And just from that, I think I've had you on Facebook for a long time, but I've never had a conversation with you. And now just suddenly you ended up in Sweden sharing this information together with Neti.
So what's his name? Mark Zuckerberg's involved in there somewhere.
So I really want to thank you both for sharing this information with people in the world.
That's basically what we feel, what we're doing. We're just sharing some information. And some people will say, yeah, that's for me, and other people will say, maybe not, but it's the sharing that's important. Yeah.
We just do what the system guiding us, and also some friends we met in the trip, they say, but the information of the universe, it seems nothing, not much to do with me. And for me, I'm more like experiential people. Usually physics and these things are really far away from me. But with the understanding and learning from Amita, wow, the Big Bang, the universe, the birth of universe, have something to do with our core issue in human being. Wow, that's something new. That's something really fascinating. Why our fear or our anxiety drive us to do so many things. That's something really fascinating about it.
So thank you.
Thank you.